Welcome to the Dev Journal. We are witnessing a fundamental shift in the digital landscape as the raw power of artificial intelligence infrastructure matures into a sophisticated economy of independent agents. The focus has moved from merely building bigger clusters to establishing the protocols that will govern how these entities communicate and exchange value. Today, we explore the emergence of standardized communication for agents running on Kubernetes and a new era for data monetization that replaces simple blocking with granular payments. We are looking at protocols like agent-to-agent and Hypertext Transfer Protocol 402, which define how value is captured across the entire stack. We are also looking at how the Google Artificial Intelligence Nano Banana 2 is pushing the limits of what a mobile device can handle with sub-second 4K image synthesis happening right in your pocket. It is a massive leap for on-device processing that could change our expectations for mobile performance and energy efficiency.
Beyond the hardware, I am tracking whether these massive capital expenditure ramps at Alphabet and NVIDIA actually translate into sustainable returns, or if we are just overcomplicating the stack. We have a lot of ground to cover as we dissect the transition from raw compute to a frictionless agent marketplace, starting with standardized agent communication.
The Linux Foundation is championing the agent-to-agent protocol as a standard for artificial intelligence microservices, and it feels like a watershed moment for interoperability. By moving this project into the open source domain, we are seeing a push toward a world where different intelligence models can collaborate without being trapped in proprietary silos. One of the cleverest parts of this framework is how it handles identity using an agent card published at a specific endpoint. By placing a JavaScript object notation, file at /well-known/agentcard.javascript object notation, organizations can define specific skills and identities that any other agent can discover and trust instantly across the web. This trust layer is backed by a revived standard from Coinbase known as the X402 protocol. It breathes new life into the old Hypertext Transfer Protocol 402 payment required status, allowing these autonomous entities to settle debts for specific tasks using on-chain micropayments that occur in mere milliseconds.
While the economic theory is shiny, the engineering reality requires treating these agents as first-class Kubernetes workloads. The Kagent framework uses custom resource definitions to let us manage agents with the same rigor we apply to containers, which is the only way to ensure these autonomous scripts do not just drift into chaos. The challenge lies in the massive governance gap, because traditional service mesh tools are essentially blind to what an agent is actually doing. Without protocol-aware inspection through the Agent Gateway project, we cannot see the specific skills or tasks being invoked, leaving us vulnerable to unpredictable behavior and massive infrastructure overhead. My concern is that without this deep visibility, those machine speed micropayments you mentioned could easily lead to runaway application programming interface costs. If a service mesh cannot distinguish between a standard data request and a high-cost model call, engineers will find themselves facing enormous bills before they even realize a loop has occurred. It is important to distinguish the agent-to-agent protocol from the model context protocol, which focuses on how agents talk to tools. A 2A is strictly about the coordination between the agents themselves, providing a dedicated data plane that governs traffic across clusters while trying to maintain some level of architectural sanity.
Ensuring that sanity requires moving from simple binary controls to a more nuanced system of value exchange. It is time to pivot from the protocol layer, governing agent communication, to the monetization layer, governing how those agents access training data, where the old models of blocking web crawlers are finally being replaced by smarter systems. Stack Overflow and Cloudflare are redefining how we value digital knowledge by moving away from the blunt force of 403 forbidden blocks toward a pay-per-crawl model that allows high-value platforms to participate in the value exchange instead of simply shutting the door on crawlers. With generative artificial intelligence projected to contribute up to $4.4 trillion annually to the global economy by 2026, Data owners need a seat at the table through a new framework that shifts the conversation from a binary choice to a more sophisticated yes-if approach. The implementation of the X402 protocol is particularly impressive because it allows anonymous bots to settle payments without the friction of traditional registration, effectively removing the massive overhead of enterprise sales cycles and allowing for real-time machine-to-machine transactions that happen in the background.
Those frictionless payments sound convenient, but the engineering challenge of actually identifying these bots is becoming a constant game of cat and mouse, because modern crawlers increasingly use headless browsers to mimic human traffic, making traditional fingerprinting and bot scoring methods almost entirely useless in a production environment. To make this work, the system relies on Cloudflare's web application firewall and bot management infrastructure to categorize every incoming request with extreme precision, allowing organizations to apply granular monetization rules that can distinguish between a commercial scraper and a legitimate user, even when the margin for error is thin. If the logic is not technically airtight, we risk massive data leakage or accidentally charging search engines that provide vital traffic as commercial artificial intelligence entities. We'll always look for architectural loopholes to bypass these paywalls, meaning the security layer must be just as robust as the payment protocol. While Stack Overflow is using this to monetize commercial bots while keeping traditional search free, the technical overhead of managing these overlapping rules forces our edge infrastructure to become a complex clearinghouse for microtransactions, inevitably adding new layers of latency and potential failure points.
Finding that balance between monetization and access marks a critical shift in how we handle information at the server level, representing a broader movement away from the server-side monetization of data to the client-side consumption of that data through high-speed on-device synthesis. Google just pushed the boundaries of what our pockets can handle with Nano Banana 2, also known as Gemini 3.1 Flash Image. We are looking at sub-500 millisecond latencies for 4K image synthesis on standard mobile hardware, which effectively brings professional-grade studio capabilities directly to the consumer level. The ability to maintain subject consistency for up to 5 different characters across various scenes represents a massive leap forward. This level of identity preservation means creators can storyboard entire narratives on a phone without losing the visual soul of their protagonists, transforming mobile devices into powerful centers for content generation. The introduction of banana peels through their new software development kit is equally fascinating for developers. By using specialized low-rank adaptation modules, the system can be fine-tuned for specific artistic styles or technical requirements without bloated file sizes, which is vital for maintaining high performance on mid-range mobile devices. This specialized focus on 1.8 billion parameters allows for tasks like medical imaging to be performed on a tablet without a server connection, ensuring patient privacy remains a top priority. It represents a shift where the power of generative models is no longer tethered to massive data centers, but lives in our hands.
Sloan, while that parameter count is impressive, the real technical breakthrough here is the use of latent consistency distillation, which reduces denoising to 2 to 4 steps. That efficiency is what allows the system to hit 30 frames per second at 512 pixel resolution without draining the battery. To keep the texture quality high while shrinking the hardware footprint, they employed dynamic quantization, aware training, which allows weights to be downcast to 4-bit or 8-bit integers. This optimization ensures that the model does not sacrifice the fine details in 4K outputs just because it runs on mobile. Architecturally, we have to consider how grouped query attention reduces the memory bandwidth requirements during heavy processing. Without this specific choice, the mobile neural processing units would likely hit thermal throttling almost immediately when trying to render high-fidelity images, which would render the native 4K support practically useless. These mobile optimizations represent a triumph for local execution, yet they still require the massive compute clusters of the cloud for their initial training. We should move from the edge computing capabilities of mobile models to the massive financial engines powering the global artificial intelligence infrastructure and the hardware giants driving those markets. Data center revenue reaching $62.3 billion in Q4 is a massive number, but it highlights how dependent the artificial intelligence market is on just a few architectures like Blackwell and Rubin. While they issued guidance of $78 billion for the next quarter, we are seeing a significant concentration of risk. Investors often overlook that a high beta of 2.31 means this stock swings much wider than the broader market does. When you factor in the potential for 25% tariffs on chips entering the United States, that record revenue growth of 114.20% year-over-year starts to look fragile. Even with a gross margin of 74.99%, the engineering reality is that maintaining this dominance requires constant, expensive innovation. The market is pricing in a forward price-to-earnings ratio of 17.43, which seems reasonable only if you assume the demand for these systems never hits a saturation point. I see the numbers as a warning of overheating, but I know you look at that $60.85 billion in free cash flow and see something entirely different for the future of the industry. How do you reconcile those massive cash reserves with the looming geopolitical risks that could disrupt their entire shipping pipeline?
Generating that amount of free cash flow is why I view them as the central treasury of this entire technological shift, rather than just another hardware vendor. Having $60.85 billion in cash gives them a buffer that most companies can only dream of, allowing them to navigate those tariff hurdles while still outpacing every competitor. We also have to look at the historical patterns surrounding their major events like the upcoming keynote on March 16th. These presentations often trigger price movements of 5% or more as the industry gets a look at the next generation of power, which makes that analyst price target of $261.27 feel achievable. With a confidence score of 7 out of 10 for a price increase over the next 21 days, there is a clear path for a recovery toward that 52-week high of $212.19. The momentum from their record $68.1 billion in revenue provides a very strong floor for investor sentiment. It is a natural shift to move from the primary chip provider to a massive hyperscaler, utilizing those very same components to build their own empire. We need to examine how Alphabet is ramping up its capital expenditures and leveraging its own hidden assets within this broader artificial intelligence ecosystem to drive a bullish sentiment despite some technical indicators. Google Cloud is experiencing a massive surge, with revenue jumping 48% year-over-year, proving their enterprise strategy is working. This growth is backed by a staggering $240 billion backlog, specifically driven by the intense demand for Gemini artificial intelligence across their global customer base. The reach of their primary model is equally impressive, with Gemini artificial intelligence now serving 750 million monthly active users. This massive scale demonstrates how effectively they are converting their existing ecosystem into an artificial intelligence-first audience, creating a platform for long-term monetization that few competitors can match. Beyond their core operations, Alphabet holds strategic hidden assets that provide a significant valuation cushion for investors. Their 14% stake in Anthropic, which is reportedly eyeing a $380 billion initial public offering, represents a massive amount of untapped value that the market is not currently pricing in, with analysts setting a price target of $376.86. There is substantial upside compared to the current price of $307.38. This optimistic outlook reflects a belief that their high margins and strategic investments will eventually overcome the temporary technical pressures we see today.
Sloan, the hidden assets you mentioned are compelling, But why has the 14-day relative strength index dipped down to 29.30? This suggests the stock is oversold as investors brace for a massive capital expenditure ramp of $140 billion to $185 billion planned for 2026. While the spending is aggressive, their 7.4% stake in SpaceX provides a unique infrastructure hedge that differentiates them from other hyperscalers. This investment gives them a direct line into the future of global connectivity and satellite data, which could be a critical component of their long-term engineering roadmap. Financial efficiency remains high with a gross margin of 59.65% and a net margin of 32.81%. Even with 15.09% year-over-year revenue growth, maintaining those returns while pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into physical infrastructure is a tall order. Contrast the high-margin success of these tech giants with the operational struggles of the specialized energy sector supporting them. We should examine ES Energy Enterprises, which faces severe downward pressure following a fourth-quarter earnings miss and weak guidance that has left many investors questioning their path forward.
The market reaction to ES Energy Enterprises was swift and unforgiving after they reported fourth-quarter revenue of $58 million. This fell well short of the $93 million consensus estimate, triggering a precipitous drop in the share price from $11.13 down to $6.74. Investors are now grappling with more than just a financial miss as Block and Leviton have launched a formal securities fraud investigation into the company. This legal cloud adds a heavy layer of risk that could easily overshadow any progress they make in scaling up their annual production capacity to 2 gigawatt-hours this year. There is a small silver lining, as the company removed its going concern warning and currently holds a cash position exceeding $600 million. However, the new revenue guidance for fiscal year 2026 of $300 million to $400 million is a significant retreat from previous market expectations of $471 million. While having cash on hand provides a temporary lifeline, the fundamental math behind their operations raises a very different set of questions about their survival. Vance, how does a company even begin to navigate the technical and financial hurdles when their margins look this disconnected from the reality of a sustainable business model?
Looking at the raw numbers, the situation is even more dire than the revenue miss suggests, because the gross margin sits at a catastrophic negative 533.52%. It is impossible to scale your way out of a hole where you are effectively losing over $5 for every single dollar of revenue generated. The inefficiency ripples through the entire balance sheet, resulting in a net margin of negative 4,394.91%. When you pair that with an earnings per share loss of 84 cents against an expected loss of 20 cents, the engineering of their cost structure appears fundamentally broken at this current stage. Even with 2 gigawatt-hours of capacity, the negative free cash flow of $187.12 million suggests that a path to profitability remains years away. They are burning through their capital reserves at a rate that makes their 2026 targets feel more like a hopeful prayer than a solid technical roadmap. These struggles highlight a broader reality in the energy sector, where the high cost of supporting the artificial intelligence infrastructure race is becoming a barrier to entry. As we conclude today, it is clear that maturity in this space requires more than just innovative technology. It demands a level of fiscal discipline that many firms are failing to meet. Our data models project a 7 out of 10 confidence score for a price increase in NVIDIA over the next 21 days. At the same time, we are watching Alphabet manage a massive capital expenditure ramp while leveraging hidden assets that many investors are simply ignoring in this current market cycle.
While those massive infrastructure investments remain critical, We are finally moving beyond basic hardware build-outs and toward a standardized artificial intelligence agent economy. We are seeing a shift where agent-to-agent protocols and Hypertext Transfer Protocol 402 are defining how value is captured from the silicon in NVIDIA chips toward on-device synthesis. As technology moves from simple block or allow logic toward more complex value exchange, the way we build and fund companies will never be the same. We hope these insights help you navigate the technical and financial hurdles of this evolving landscape. Thank you for joining us today on the Developer Journal.